I ended up being committed to a crime I did not do, and I lost someone in my life that I was very close with. This is a heartbreaking emotional story. That's a trigger warning. I hope you guys are having a great day. Let's jump right to it. I would never bite the hand that feeds me just to fit in with people that I knew were going nowhere in life. By refusing to partake in their sins, they punish me by making me out to be the villain in her eyes. Years later, I could not bring myself to look for the woman who raised me and thank her because I was afraid that she would hate me. Being accused of something you did not do hurts so much, and instead of staying to fight the accusations, I ran away from home. I've only known that home since my parents passed away. My mom and dad passed away because of poverty. They were both very sick with a chronic illness caused by the company where they worked. They were among many workers who developed sickness and passed away months later because of the company which refused to pay for their treatment. They were exposed to dangerous chemicals, but it was never proven in court. I lost both them when I was 13, within just a few days of each other, in fact. I had no family that I knew of, and I was so overwhelmed by taking the responsibility of taking care of the funeral arrangements. But one thing about the hood was that when tragedy struck, everyone did their best to help, no matter how little they had. Sure, there was a lot of crime, drugs, and shootings, but in the midst of all that were some really kind people. One of them was Grandma Flo. We nicknamed her that because she was like a Florence Nightingale, but with a love for helping children with nowhere to go. No one knew her own kids stayed, just that her husband had died 10 years ago, leaving her quite a large sum of money. With it, she started to raise all the children without homes or who were running away from abusive homes. She was everyone's grandma, even though we were not related to her. And she was the one who took me in to stay with her without asking for anything in return. There was about 10 kids who were staying with her at the time, but the kids came and went all the time. She was a very kind and hardworking woman who did so much for the children. She paid attention to everyone and remembered all of our allergies, the things we liked to eat, and our hobbies. Her wit was so quick that nothing could pass through without her noticing, which was how she managed to discipline all of us. I quickly learned not to underestimate her frail figure and kind smile, because she took no nonsense. If she told you not to do something once and you didn't listen, then she would make sure that you never forgot it. In the community where I grew up, corporal punishment was something that we were used to. If someone caught a child misbehaving, even if they were not theirs, they had a right to discipline them. I adjusted to life with her, getting up to no good and slowly filling the void of my parents' death. She loved each and every one of us with her whole heart, and there was nothing that we lacked. We all went to school, which was one of the rules for staying in the house. The other rule was that we would not steal, drink, or do drugs in her house, and if she caught us, that would be indication that they were an adult and they would leave. Those were fair enough rules in my book, considering that she did not have to spend every penny she had on us. But that did not mean everyone listened. There were these boys who called themselves the Musketeers, who were full of trouble. Josiah, Heron, and Tyrone were 18, 17, and 15 respectively. Those three acted like angels in front of Grandma, but once she turned her back, they wreaked havoc. Poor Gran was always talking about them, about how proud she was because they were doing well in school. But those three were bribing and threatening their way to good grades. We were all sworn to silence when they misbehaved. If anyone snitched, then they would suddenly trip over the floor. They tried to get me to join their little group several times, but I was not about that life of crime. All I wanted was to graduate, go to college, and take care of Grandma. That led to them calling me Granny's little baby and making wailing sounds when she was not there. But they did not dare touch me, for they knew Granny would lose it if anything happened to me. There was a running joke that I was her favorite, and I more than encouraged it. Either way, I stayed out of their way, until one day, I saw something that showed me that terrible 3 had to be stopped. Granny sent me to her room to get something, and gave me the key because her room was always locked. She had to start locking her room after Theodore, who's 4, started rearranging all the furniture in the house. Either way, to my surprise, the door was slightly ajar, and big eyes were looking at me through the crack. I immediately knew that it was Tyrone, because his eyes were cat-like. I pushed the door open and found the other 2 rummaging through Grandma's stuff. Before I could shout, Tyrone grabbed me, closed the door just in time for me to see Josiah stuff some money in his pocket. After I promised to keep quiet, they said they were just borrowing money from her and going to have some fun. I asked what sort of fun, to which they replied that they were going to buy alcohol and cigarettes, and said I could join if I do not say anything to Grandma about the money. I knew that they were stealing money from her and not borrowing it, and it was wrong. Not only that, but Granny detested drinking and smoking. They knew that they could not do it while at the house. I told them exactly that, but they told me I was being Grandma's baby. Then they taunted me like they have done every other time. I managed to break free from Tyrone and run downstairs. I immediately told Granny what happened and she called them down. They tried their hardest to lie, but when she fixed her iron glare on you, you would find yourself confessing really quickly. They apologized to her and said that they would never do it again. She told them that if she caught them again, that they were out, because she would not allow such bad influences around her other children. Then she sent them to their room for the rest of the night. But, you see, they're saying I'm a snitch, and snitches get stitches was well practiced amongst us. It was usually those 3 who punished snitches, so I knew I was dead. Under any circumstances, I would have kept my mouth shut, but I knew that Grandma did not have much, and she needed that money that they were stealing. That night, I did not sleep a wink, knowing that they were 3 very angry people down the hall who wanted me dead. But they never came. That night, or the next in fact for the whole week, they did not even talk to me, which made me feel worse. I would have just preferred a once-off beating, then we would have moved on with our life, but they were too cruel for that. They dragged their silence on for weeks until I eventually forgot and thought that I had gotten away with it. Well, I was dead wrong, because they had planned for me so much worse than a beating. I had a metal whistle that was one of the things my father gave me when he was still alive, which I always kept around my neck. This was the whistle that they used to frame me. Grandma had a garden where she grew most of our food, but we were the ones who usually worked on it. She loved that garden very much because it helped us save on food. I've mentioned these 2 things because weeks after I snitched on the terrible 3, the garden burned down. And the worst part was that only Grandma, Theodore, and I was at home. If it was not for the neighbor who frantically knocked on the door, then we would have not known that the garden was on fire. I cannot remember now if it was smoke or not, just that suddenly, Theodore and I rushed to the garden. A few people had already started pouring water over the fire, and someone had called the fire department, but we all knew they would never come. Grandma was a bit slower, but she eventually made her way to the garden. She started crying as soon as she saw the garden, saying that she did not know what her kids were going to eat. There was nothing left. The food for the next couple of weeks went up in flames, and all we did was watch it burn. I tried to comfort her as much as I could, but there was not too much else I could say. It was a mystery why the garden started burning out of nowhere, because the source of the fire could not be found. We were only relieved that no one had gotten hurt, but we knew that the next few weeks were going to be hard. Even if other people donated, there were more than 10 of us, and they could only do so much. Once the others came back home, we started to clean up and try to salvage what little we could. It was as if we were cleaning up. One of the girls shouted that she'd seen something in the soil. She pulled out a metal whistle. That was unmistakably mine. I was puzzled by how it could have landed there when I have not been in the garden for days. Then Josiah asked if I was the one who had burned down the garden. As soon as he made that suggestion, it suddenly hit me. This was their revenge. I tried to defend myself, but more people started to believe him since he was the designated ringleader. Then he said that if I was so determined to defend myself, then I would not mind them searching my stuff. I was confident that I had nothing to do with the crime. The whole brood of kids made their way upstairs to where my bed and stuff were. They tore through my stuff, and wonders of wonders, they found a lighter. It did not prove anything now that I think of it years later, but I was scared at the time and I stopped defending myself. And they said what they wanted. They all said that she had to know that it was me, and she was going to definitely kick me out. They had already put me on trial and passed down the sentence, but one thing I could never do was look her in the eyes and have her see me as a thief. I did not want her to hate me and think that I took her away from the hard work she did. So I did something very stupid and risky in order to not face her. They left me so they could all fight over who was going to get to report that they found the culprit, and hopefully become her new favorite. I did not blame the ones who participated in putting the blame on me, because they really thought it was an act of loyalty to the person who had shown them the true love. I did not wait around for them to come back. Instead, I packed the few essentials that I could, stole some of Tamika's midnight snacks, and sneaked out of the house. Then I ran, and I never looked back. Living on the streets for the first couple of months was difficult, and it was a wonder I even made it out alive. I lied about my age to get jobs like helping out at a construction site or repair shops. I survived on the kindness of strangers and did a few things I'm not proud of to survive, but I still kept the values that she instilled in me. I read any books I got my hands on and never touched any drugs, whether to use or sell. But after a while on the streets, I ended up getting taken in by the CPS. They placed me in foster home with a very kind couple who sent me back to school. I was too old for my grade and suffered a lot of bullying, but I decided to take the chance so that one day I would be successful. I wanted to give her her garden back one day, even though I was not the one who burned it. It was those three's. Even though it took me longer than most, I was able to graduate and go to college. I started my own business while still in college, and by the time I graduated, it was successful. I never had to work for anyone again like my parents had to. I was soon one of the most successful black men in my town. I met a wonderful woman who became one of my best friends and later my wife. My life was barely recognizable from the way it's been when I was 13, but I felt that something was missing. The years passed and I was now 30. But I had not yet repaid Grandma Flo for her kindness, nor did I know where she even was. My wife was the one who put pressure on me to take a chance and contact her, saying that she would not hate me. So I decided to go back and see her. I was so excited to see where the others were in life and tell her all I achieved in my life. But unfortunately, it seemed like I had waited till late. Too late. Well, almost too late because she was very sick and bedbound. The house was now cold and empty, lacking all the laughter of my siblings that she used to chase around. Only Tamika, who was now working there, remained. The other kids had been sent to foster homes by Josiah. Tamika told me that they were living under the rule of the 3 oldest boys who mistreated Grandma and took all her money. They did not take her to appointments. Instead, they spent her money on drugs and alcohol. When I spoke to her, she was so happy to see me, but still sad because the 3 men had turned out very badly. They came while we were in the middle of catching up and threatened to throw me out and beat me up. I left, but not for long, because no way was I letting her be exposed to such abuse by the people she raised. It did not take me long to contact my lawyer to help a case to get them kicked out of the house. While the case was being processed, I managed to get a court order that banned them from entering the premises. We won the case, and I was happy to throw them out of her house. They had no school, no job, or no qualifications aside from stealing an old woman's money. So they went back to what they know best, the streets. I would hear months later that Heron and Tyrone passed away in a shootout, and Josiah was paralyzed. As they say, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. As for Grandma, I was surprised to find out that she did not blame me for burning down the garden. When she became sick, the actions of the 3 were enough to convince them it was them. All she had hoped for was that I turned out okay and achieved all my dreams. After we got them kicked out, Grandma sold the house and came to live with me and my wife. She's very old now, but she's getting proper care so at least she can live out her old age while being taken care of. And a bonus is that she gets along well with my wife. Even though we're not related by blood, it doesn't matter at all. We are a freaking family. Drop a comment down in respect of Grandma Flo. What a truly amazing woman she was. Well, guys, this one took almost 15 years. But when karma decides to strike, it doesn't matter about the time. Thankfully, karma struck on these 3 musketeers, and they got everything they deserved in the end. Well, I don't know if they deserved death, but it was knocking at their door. Guys, let me know what you thought about this story. We're going to turn our attention to the final story of the video, but do drop your comments and opinions on the first one. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please take a second right now to click that button if you're enjoying, because it helps support the channel immensely. Alright, the final story of the video is my wife told her friends she settled for me. Yeah, sounds pretty bad, that's because it is. Let's talk about it. We have a perfect marriage. We've been together for 9 years, married for 4. We rarely fight, we often are intimate. We go out on date nights and memes to each other, the works. Recently, we got the news that her ex-boyfriend overdosed and passed away. Now, my wife has no real connection to him, so we expressed our condolences to his family over text and nothing more. She often goes out with her friends and I always let her. I have no problem with it because I used to trust her 100%. I had to work late, so I told my wife that if she wants, she can call her friends over to our place since I wouldn't be around. Well, the rains were heavy and our office was told to leave early because some light flooding was taking place on the roads. I reached home and I could tell her friends were there, so I quietly went to our room unnoticed. Everyone was speaking quite loudly though, so I could hear a lot. And the ex-boyfriend came up in a conversation. My wife said that 4 years into our relationship, she got a call from her ex-boyfriend, who lived in a trailer, offering to help her see the world. She said that she had a bag packed and was ready to leave, but in the end, decided not to and settled for the stability I was giving her. I did not know about any of this. She never told me, and she says that apparently she settled for me. One of her friends asked her if she ever regretted her choice. She said that she used to, but not recently. I guess that's it, right? I'm not unstable enough for her to be attracted to me. She has to settle for someone like me. That one word just keeps revolving in my head. Settle, 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 settle. I slipped out of the house and went to a cafe to gather my thoughts. But got a call from her asking me where I was and that I was due home half an hour ago. I went back and she greeted me with a hug and a kiss, as always, but I wasn't really into it and she asked me why the mood was off. I mumbled something like stress from work and went straight to bed, skipping dinner and our usual alone time. Except I couldn't sleep. I woke up a few hours later into the night and sat in the balcony just thinking. About how I'm not good enough for her, about how I'm sure she doesn't love me. I know she at least loves me a little, but even for that, I have no guarantee. It's the next day now. I didn't sleep much last night and wife is still asleep. I didn't tell anyone anything about what she said because I just can't. What do I do here, guys? Should I even talk to her? Divorce? Is there any hope or moving forward? Does she even want to move forward? I don't know. I'm sorry for how jumbled up this is in my head. My head's just not in a great spot. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. So, this story is pretty intense, and we're seeing OP's perspective, which is really emotional right now. There's an update for this, so strap in your seatbelts and grab your favorite beverage from the kitchen, because we're hopping into that right now. Happy update! I made a post the other day about my wife saying something jarring. Some people asked for an update, here it is. Well, immediately after the revelation, first I drove to a nearby town and took 2 days just for me and my thoughts. I called in sick from work and told my wife that I was visiting a cousin. I then read all the comments you guys had for me, and I really wanted to reply to some, but the thread got locked. But I nevertheless read each one, and it was a lot of mixed advice. Everyone was advising me to talk to her, but everyone had a different view on what to say. Some said to just go for the divorce. Some said ask her what she meant. Some defended her and told me I misunderstood everything. I decided to go for the middle option. Yesterday, I finally confronted her about it. I walked in and she came up to me for our hug. I didn't really give one back and she asked me what was wrong. I told her we need to talk. I sat her down. She could tell I was sad and worried, and I asked her if she was happy with me. She said that of course she was. I asked her if she loved me, and if she had done so through the entire course of our relationship. She looked confused and said of course she did, and asked me where this was coming from. I told her that I heard her with her friends a few days ago. I heard how she was willing to leave me after 4 years to be with her ex, and how she claimed to have settled for me. She teared up and said she did not mean it like that, to which I asked, well, how'd you mean it? She said that by settled for, she did not mean that she thought she could do better or was dating down, but that she made up her mind to stay with me because I was the better person. I told her that 4 years into our relationship, there should not have been a question in the first place, and brought up the fact that she had a bag packed. She started crying and said that was an exaggeration on her part, that she only considered it, and that was in the moment of weakness when we were having a fight, and we were briefly on break. Her ex called her because he heard about our fight through a friend. They spoke on the phone for about an hour in which he flirted with her, put me down, and offered to show her the world. She said she had a choice between going with her ex or reconciling with me, and she chose me because she loved me and always will. She said that 4 years ago she was a weaker person, that I made her strong and better. I then brought up the fact that she said that she regretted it, but had not done so recently. I asked her what she meant by recently. She said that she regretted her choice for only a month after the offer was made because she thought about what could have been, but stopped when she realized that she had the best moments of her life with me. I asked her if anything happened between her and anyone else through the course of our relationship, to which she said that she never cheated on me and never will, and I believe her. We were both crying at this stage, and we just hugged and sat together. She apologized for what she said and what she was like 5 years ago. I apologized for listening in on a private conversation without telling her and doubting that she loved me. I'm really hoping that it was nothing but a misunderstanding, and I'm glad we were able to come out stronger. Some people mentioned that I should get a DNA test for the kids, but we don't have any kids, so that's not a problem. Also, she mentioned possibly having survivor's guilt, so we're going to look into that too. Thank you everyone who commented and direct messaged me. Your advice was really appreciated. Let's read a comment. It is great that you talked it out with your wife. The relationship would not be able to survive if you swept all that under the rug. Hopefully, the talk cleared up most the air and issues that gives you the feeling of insecurities in your marriage. Hope this will just be a little speed bump in your relationship and things get back to how it was. I hope so too. I love that comment. It got a lot of upvotes. Tell me your thoughts and opinions on this story. Drop yours down below. Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and Mr. Reddito will catch you in the next one.